Hello, welcome into this week's episode of Chi Time, Your Energy Matters, with me, Clara Apollo, here on UK Health Radio, on YouTube and on podcast. And we're returning to a very dear subject for so many of us in this day and age, and that is breath work. And some of you may have heard or watched the recent episode that I did with Dr. Roger Janka around this topic, where he kind of unpicked it for us in a way that I hadn't imagined. It was really quite magical and also quite practical. And on this episode of Chi Time, we're all about your energy, how you can tune in with your own vitality, how you can nurture your energy well. And of course, breath work is absolutely key. In fact, what I have done is I've been very fortunate. I live here near Glastonbury, and not so far away is Pete Warnock. You may have heard of him. He's a breathwork facilitator, been doing this for such a long time. It is his passion, it is his life's work. And so he's going to come in and he's going to respond to what Dr. Janka was talking about, and also begin to share with us some of his approaches and his awareness around breathwork and why it is so fundamental for us now. And on that note, I'm just going to drop back a bit, because Chi Time is about 10 years old. It used to be on Express FM over in the Portsmouth area. And one of the early proponents and someone who ran with the show all the way through until he sadly died about 3 years ago now was Barefoot Doctor. And he was my Taoist teacher, and he was also a music producer. But one of the things he used to say about the breath was, I'm just going to take a breath now. Let's all take a breath now. Because breathing is the only thing that matters. Everything else can wait. You agree with me? Yeah. So what I've got for you now, just before Pete comes on, is a track called Breathe that Barefoot Doctor is in with Skull Bandits. So this is a bit of a dance track, and we're going to get into this with Pete as well, because he loves his ecstatic dance, as you know I do. So he felt it'd be rather nice to sort of pop this in for you at the beginning of the show to get you tapping your feet and dancing around wherever you are and doing some conscious breathing. So we'll be back with Pete Warnock after this glorious track from Skull Bandits featuring Barefoot Doctor. And you're back on your Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, here on UK Health Radio, on podcast and on YouTube, Clara Apollo's Chi Time, where you can see replays of a lot of these shows. And indeed, you're going to be able to see the video version of this one, where I have got the breath work facilitator and so much more. Peter Warnock is here. You've just heard You've just heard Breathe by Barefoot Doctor and Skull Bandits, and that has set the scene beautifully for Peter to come in. So let me introduce you to him now. Welcome into the show, Pete.
Hello there. Hey, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited. So excited.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is just read a little bit about you, so to give our listeners and viewers an overview. So Pete Warnock is the creator of Naturally Ecstatic and the founder of Bulletproof Breathwork, love that, and Synergy Bodywork, breath and bodywork, love it. And he's been working in the field of personal transformation and awakening since 1992 through healing, teaching and facilitating. Pete is an energy alchemist, and he has distilled his life's experience of therapy training and self-practice into what he consistently sees to be some of the most powerful tools and techniques on the planet for healing, transformation and awakening. He's discovered what he perceives to be the key to end emotional suffering through his own journey of living with and transforming a relationship with chronic pain. Because after a series of injuries in 1973, when he was 5 years old, he's saying that his breath literally saved his life and enabled him to live with the pain. And since then, he's had an intimate love affair with breath ever since. I mean, you've got to have an intimate love affair with breath because you take it in, don't you? But it is something that you can learn to nurture and get more in touch with. So Pete's approach to breathwork is pretty unique. He educates people through the somatic means, so this is very much embodying it around the subtle mechanics of breath, and so that once you experience it, you don't forget it. That's the key, isn't it? When you embody things, you really get your experience. And his discoveries have sort of come through his own personal experience, and he's noticed that there's depths that can be overlooked by some of the mainstream breathwork facilitators here, and he's found that what he's discovered really is quite a game changer for this arena. He's also a lover of presence. That's, you know, being in the here and now. I'm sure I'm like a little gift every now and again as well, but presence, that is the gift, isn't it, when we come into presence, and exploring different states of consciousness through the breath. So I know you love also blending the ancient wisdom with the traditional modern therapies, as well as cutting edge science. So I know this is a massive topic, Peter, so welcome so much into the show, and let's all breathe together, shall we?
Yeah. And I think I would love to start this off with a little practice that we can all do together, which will bring us into alpha brain waves. It will bring us into present time awareness. And there's a difference between being present and being present. You know, being present is kind of having your mind here, and you're just here. But actually being present, you are surrendered into this life that we are, and you're seeing from this, you're living from this, you're breathing from this, which is very different to a mind state of presence.
Okay.
So
Yeah, let's do it. Are you up for a little bit of a practice?
Let me just explain
yes,
what we're going to do, and then I will just lead us through. So the concept of this is we're going to be using a coherence breath. So we're breathing in for a count of 5 and out for a count of 5. And each count is about 1 second. So in for 5 seconds and out for 5 seconds. In through the nose, out through the nose. So that's the first piece of it. Then we're going to be moving our hands. I'm going to move back so you can see. We're going to be moving our hands a bit like Qigong. We're bringing our hands up, all the way up on the in-breath, and on the out-breath, we sweep our hands back down. Now, the key element to this is we're not only mixing our breath with our movement, but we're putting our hands just in our peripheral vision. So we're keeping our hands in our peripheral vision. So we have a soft gaze in front of us, and we keep our awareness on our hands. We can see our hands in our peripheral vision. Okay, so let's try this for a few breaths, and it only takes a few breaths. Okay. So starting with our hands down by our sides, with our palms facing up, and we start to breathe in through our nose for a count of 5 as we sweep our hands up and keep our hands in our peripheral vision. And out, keeping the hands in the peripheral vision and relaxing into the body. And as we breathe in this way, everything in our body slows down. Breathing in for a count of 5. And out for a count of 5. And just, as I said, keeping this peripheral vision, our hands in our peripheral vision, and feeling in the body. So as we coincide our breath with our peripheral vision and with this hand movement, we start to notice the aliveness that we are.
Oh,
and then we just shake that out.
So beautiful. I love that you've brought the movement in straight away with the breath, because you know, with the Qigong, to move with the breath is such a mind, body, spirit harmonizer. And you've just given us a beautiful beautiful example of that. This sort of lifting the chi at the side with the breath gives space for the intercostal muscles and the ribs to, you're actually helping the breath by raising the arms, aren't you?
You are,
And
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
reminding me of all the white crane work as well within the Qigong. So what a lovely introduction to bring our listeners and viewers into. And
Thank you. And there are so many different levels of kind of not only awareness, but kind of intricacies within that you can explore. And the more
yes,
you
of
do it, the
course.
more it informs you as to yeah, how to do it. So
Exactly. And that breathing in for 5 and breathing out for 5, that's a real balanced breath, because so often you'll get breathing in for less and breathing out for more. And I mean, should we just have a little bit of a look before we lose the thread on the fact that we're linking in with the last Chi time about breath work, because I know you've got so much to share with us. And this idea that Dr. Yankel was saying, that of all the different kinds of breath works, he was saying you could boil it down to 4 particular ones that he named as being the 2-part breath, the 3-part breath, the 4-part breath, and yes, the 5-part breath. And if you want to see that episode, hop over to my YouTube channel, Chi Time, CHITIME, or indeed here on UK Health Radio. But don't go now, because Pete is here to talk to us about. I'd like your response on that, please, Pete. What do you reckon?
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting take. It is an interesting take. Yes, there are definitely those aspects of the breath, but there are so many more aspects as well. And actually, on its own, I mean, breath is incredible on its own, but breath is it's like an amplifier, and unless you have your mind engaged with an intent that's positive for you, then you can amplify whatever you want. If you're thinking negative thoughts, if you're worrying and you're breathing big and strong, then you're going to amplify that. So it's not what you. It's like Banana Rama said. It's not what you do. It's the way that you do it. And that's what get results. And it is. So breath is an amplifier for one. And yes, there are I would say that Dr. Janki's sort of summarization of there are 4 different types of breath. I think there's hundreds actually.
Yeah, and I think he was saying that as well, but he was sort of
Yeah,
getting it down to some basics. And one
yeah,
of the other things that he brought in was that in China the kanji for chi was can be written as the same for breath, and
for
that
breath.
chi
Yeah.
and breath are very interlinked, because breath is life and chi is your life
Mm.
force energy. So you're breathing in that inspiration, and that sense it's not just oxygen and all the other like the conducts and everything. It's also this component of chi, which I feel is like negative ions. I've never actually discussed this with anybody, but my feeling is that that's the component of energy that's aside from the biochemistry that you're playing with there.
Yeah, and I would say it goes way beyond that. I would say, to be controversial, I would say it's God that we're breathing. And in fact, I would say that it's not even us breathing. I would say that
Yes.
we are being breathed,
Breathe. Yes.
even though we change it and we channel it into particular ways. We shorten it, we lengthen it, we do all sorts of things with it, we play with it. So we manipulate it, but what we're manipulating is life force itself, is God itself.
Exactly.
No matter what you perceive God to be, I don't perceive it as a religious something. It is the inspiration, and in fact,
Yes.
inspiration is that word for taking in breath.
In
You know,
spiritus,
yeah,
exactement. Absolutely.
absolutely, yeah. So
So it is this dance, isn't it, between the in and the out breath, the yin and the yang, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, the being able to relax when you breathe, or being able to calm down from being stressed when you breathe. Like that track was saying, that breathe track about expelling the stress that you feel inside. So there is so much going on here, but I love what you said about when you kind of come into watching the breath. Sometimes it can make you anxious, and you have to kind of work with that
Mm.
energy of, I'm in that peripheral vision, like, so you watch the breath, but you don't do so too intently, because what you focus on changes, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the awareness skips around often, it
Yeah.
skips from your awareness of watching the hands, it skips to the breath, it skips to your internal state, your expansive nature. It can skip around in all sorts of things. But the longer you do it and the more you do it, the more you start to notice all of these things at once, and you drop into a quiet place inside where there is just an expansiveness and then a gentle relaxing, a gentle letting go. So there is some kind of some activeness as you're breathing in, as you're moving the hands up, and then there's also a passiveness in there as well. So it's got this yin and yang in there, and all breath, every breath has got its active and passive components. Every in-breath has got its active and passive components, and every out-breath has got its active and passive components. But that's not necessarily what is taught as breathing. And for me, there are different levels of understanding breath. And I kind of see it a little bit like food education. You have the vast majority of people who are kind of unconsciously eating. Or they know about their meat and 2 veg or whatever it is, or 5 a day, or whatever that is now, whatever is the current kind of narrative on what we should have. And then you have your kind of much more nutritionally based people. And then you have your biohackers who are just like optimal this and optimal that. And within the biohacking realm, you've got your nootropics, you've got exercise, you've got breath, you've got all sorts of apps and machines and stuff. And it's the same with breath. Breath is our initial nourishment. Without breath, we stop. It's very simple, and we can go without food for long periods of time. Can't do that with breath.
Well, exactly. As I opened the show saying, what Barefoot Doctor was saying about breathing is the only thing that matters. Everything else can wait. And I mean, we can't go for more than a few minutes without our breath. And yet it's something that we all take for granted because it goes on automatically. And yet when we bring awareness to it, my goodness, there's different realms that we can explore.
Yeah. And this is what I see, like going back to my analogy with food. You've got your sort of unconscious and your basic eating, and then you've got your nutritionally kind of focused people, and then you've got your biohackers. It's the same with breath. Most of us breathe unconsciously, and we have an idea that taking a few breaths is going to make us feel better, Then we have our breath workers who are really into kind of expanding themselves and playing with breath and using it for whatever level. And then we have the kind of people, the elite breathers, the biohackers, who are fascinated with all sorts of aspects of breath. And there are so many aspects of breath. Breath will affect us on a physical level. It helps our mental health. You have people focused more on mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, the esoteric side of things. You have your people who are really into the stress management. You have people who are into the tantra and the sexual side of breath work. And then you have people who are so into the mind and understanding the science of breath. You can go down so many rabbit holes with breath.
Which is why it's so fascinating, because it's one of the things that connects all of us. We all breathe. We all share the air. And that's, as you were saying earlier, it's that intimate connection that we actually, one of the things that I like to play with is that we often feel like I haven't got enough space. I've got so much going on, that everything gets compressed. And yet when you just look around you, the air is all around you, that is like showing you there is space all around you. You are in space, and we are space beings. It's true. But when we inhale some of that space into our most intimate sense into our bodies. We receive spaciousness into ourselves. And I think that's a really important awareness. I know it's one of those ahas that I had that made me kind of soften into this receiving of, so every breath I'm actually bringing some space into my system so that it's got a chance to process, do its thing, but also so I've got a chance to feel more spacious inside. And I think this is a very, very one of the gifts of breath work.
It is really important when we can actually tune into the spaciousness inside of ourselves. And if you look at metaphysics, they're showing that every cell, every atom is 99.999% space. And when we bring our awareness to and the possibility of us being spaciousness with our breath, it's like it reminds us of our deeper nature. Yeah. And then all of the busyness that we live in, you know, in the mind and in the who, how, what, and all this kind of stuff, when we just drop beneath that, we drop back into our spacious being, what I call our naturally ecstatic state. So, and it is naturally ecstatic.
Yeah,
we are all naturally ecstatic, just beneath our busyness.
So it's always there waiting for us to return to it. And I know that you mentioned the word ecstatic again. You love your ecstatic dancing, and I do as well. And it's a way to free up the stress, but also it's a way to come into spontaneous movement and a way to like enjoy the breath in a different way. And so I've asked Pete Warnock's here with us on Chi Time to choose a track to share in the middle of the show here. And so he's chosen a couple of tracks. So I'm going to suggest, how about the one called Where Everything is Music? Because you just said everything is a space. But yes, yeah. Tell us a little bit about this. And
now this tune, this song, it hasn't been let out into the general world yet. A friend of mine, James Frost, who is a beautiful musician, he's been working on his album for 4 years. He did a crowdfunding, and he got lots of the crowdfunders in to actually record some of the songs as a choir. And this is an adaptation of a Rumi song, or of a Rumi poem that he's put to music, and then he's brought the choir in and all sorts of things. And it's beautiful, and it just touches me, you know, because when you're in this space beneath the mind, everything is music. You know, if you're listening, you know, with yourself, if you're listening with everything you are, then everything is just this beautiful flow that's appearing moment to moment. Yeah. One of the lines in it is, "We have fallen into the space where everything is music." So beautiful. So the invitation is to feel in yourself, feel in your body, notice your breath, and let yourself fall into this space whilst you're listening to this.
So you're back on Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, here on UK Health Radio, and my guest Pete Warnock. And before those station messages, we were chatting about breath work, and he played a new track by James Frost called Where Everything is Music. So he's been very kind to let us play this inaugurally here on UK Health Radio, Pete, hasn't he? Where can people find that? Is it going to be available on Bandcamp or something coming up? Or
he will eventually, once he actually releases the album, which is called All of Our Hands. Again, beautiful concept, all of our hands, you know, it takes all of our hands to make a brighter world. And yeah, it's going to be coming out in the not too distant future. So look out for it on Bandcamp and so on. But look him up, James Frost, stunning musician.
I love that track already. I mean, you sent it to me the other day, and I felt it was a real blessing. And it encourages so much, and it's got this depth. You say it's linked to Rumi as well, and how much the wisdom of our elders is so much part of our lives when we let it. And of course, that's something we've got in common with our ancestors. We all breathed, you know. So so we were talking about spaciousness and music and breathwork. So one of the things that that happened to you was then you had an issue with pain, and then you managed to get into breath work to help you overcome pain. And is this something that you find helps a lot of people? Do they come to you and go, I've tried everything, and then you introduce them to some breath work as well, and they find a way of managing it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it happened when I fell out of a tree and landed on a spike. I slid down a tree and landed on a spike that right up through my perineum, right into my abdomen. And as you know, the perineum is a diaphragm, which as we breathe, the perineum and the breathing diaphragm come down into our abdominal. Well, the breathing diaphragm comes down into the abdominal cavity, and then our pelvic floor drops down and pushes down. And it became unsafe for me to breathe, because when I breathed, I just had agony, absolute shooting nerve pain. So I held my breath and passed out. And after sort of being treated and convalescing, and then having a few other injuries, splitting the stitches open and all sorts of things like that, it was a crazy time, which informed me a lot about the nature of my pelvic floor and the nature of breath, and the nature of pain. And I learned to slow my breath and refine my breath. And actually, I learned to almost isolate my breathing diaphragm from my pelvic floor. I learned to breathe in a way that my pelvic floor was almost disengaged, which for me at the time I needed to do. But now I'm fully using the both together. But yeah, it taught me about my relationship with sensation. And what I initially experienced was there was this huge pain everywhere in my body. That it was a nerve pain, and it shot up in all sorts of places. And until I actually put my really finest of awareness into it, and really chose to go into it, and noticed that this big, huge thing of pain was actually made up of millions of tiny other sensations. It wasn't this big block that my mind had made it, but it was made up of lots and lots of different things. And a lot of those things were incredibly pleasurable. And so I learned to change my relationship with the way in which I met pain and the way in which I met sensation. And this happened over years and years and years, because I still live with this pain in my body. I also nearly broke my back around the same time, and so I've lived with what most people would call chronic pain for all of my life, and I have refined my relationship with it so that 95% of the time I can really just be with it, and be fascinated with the qualities of sensation, and I let it inform me as to how I need to be or what I need to do. And then sometimes, very occasionally, it gets the better of me, and I'll take some painkillers, but
Fair enough,
but I found
human,
that
yes.
yeah, absolutely. But I found that breathing in particular ways can really reduce the pain. So what I found is it's not only breathing in certain ways, so really slowing the exhalation, really dropping in and relaxing around the sensation, around the pain, and really letting myself deeply feel. Because often when we have pain, part of us withdraws from it, and actually pain and sensation is the body's way of trying to get our attention.
Exactly. It's a conversation, isn't it? And I also feel you go into contraction as well, and that
Yeah,
stops
you do.
the whole blood supply. But I like what you
Yeah.
said about dropping the breath, just letting the breath out, but dropping the breath. And then there's the surrender. And when you surrender, you soften generally, don't you?
Yeah, you do. So
So,
if you're tuning into, if you're doing this really long, soft, slow breath, you soften your body. It's like time slows down inside you, and you become hyper aware, and you just really welcome every sensation. And within welcoming every sensation, you notice where you don't welcome it. Because when you try to do something, you notice where you can't. And then the parts of you that are in opposition are the parts of you that are creating the suffering. It's never the pain that creates the suffering. It's the way in which we meet it.
Oh,
So
wise words. Yes. So having breath work as a tool to assist is
yeah. Yeah,
really important,
it's
isn't it?
retraining the way in which we perceive and receive life. And this, I mean, this is I created a whole program around using breath and using awareness um,
Mm.
for this whole thing, you know. And so, yes, I work with people who have chronic pain, who have all sorts of emotional problems, people who have mental health conditions, and all sorts of things, because it works across the board. I teach tantra, so I work with breath, with our sexual energy, you know, and it's very similar things that work across the board, you know, same techniques, same awareness, you know, because the only thing that is ever going on is life, you know,
Yes.
every sensation is life. Every sensation is life. And if we oppose it, we suffer. If we welcome it, it informs us and we step into the flow of life. We let life have us and then we come into flow, you know? So, and if it's in you, it's for you. Life wouldn't put it in there if you were there to get rid of it, if you had to get rid of it, you know? So,
It's learning. I mean, what an extreme experience for you to have as a 5-year-old, and
yeah,
to then carry that through your life and to let it teach you and to take it
yeah,
on the chin, and go, okay, because this is a great indicator of your soul journey of enabling you to develop as a soul being, and then it's going to also assist others that have similar things going on, hopefully not as extreme as that, but other
mm,
ways of
mm,
sudden pains or pains that they don't know how to get rid of, to
yeah.
find strategies to manage them. And so, yeah, I mean, you do Reiki healing as well, don't you? So everything sort of runs through this healing channel of what does this person need? And what was the other? So, oh, we've only got about 10 minutes left. So much I want to talk to you about. And and I know what it is around expression. So if you're saying that it's the body trying to get us to listen to it, it has this vocabulary, and some of that is pain. And the other part, the body wants to speak, that the voice wants to be used with any sounds or expression of the traumas, but also sound work. And I know that you love sounding, singing, humming, and all of that, and how important. I mean, go on, talk to us about sound and breath work and humming. Go on.
Well, it's all the same stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Breath is singing, you know, or singing is breath. You know, the breath comes up through the vocal cords.
Yes.
When the vocal cords are engaged, it's still breathing. You know, we can't sing without exhaling. You know, so and we can either do it purely, again, like I was saying with all these other things, we can either do it purely as a physical something, or we can do it with the awareness on something slightly deeper. You know, we can tune into the expansiveness. You know, we can tune into joy. And personally, I mean, with my healing journey, I then spent, I mean, I had a nervous breakdown in my early 20s. And all sorts of things in life conspired to kind of get me to stop, basically, and to get me to look at life in a new way. I rediscovered breath that I'd forgotten about. You know, I rediscovered meditation. I came off antidepressants really quickly once I'd come back to breath and meditation, and then spent years and years trying to heal myself and fix myself. And then about 15 years later, so probably 15 years ago now, I realized I could go round and round on that wheel forever, you know, trying to fix myself, trying to heal myself. And I was focusing on what was broken, and I wasn't focusing on the joy, on the beauty, on the life that is already here. And so I, out of the blue, just diverted my attention to what is good, what is beautiful, what is alive, what is wonderful. And now I've aligned my life with doing things that light me up, doing things that make me feel good, doing things that help other people. And when I'm doing that, if my stuff comes up and I need to deal with something, I do it, I meet it. But it means I'm not burrowing around trying to search for the next thing that I've got to heal, you know, which I see a lot in the whole kind of new age and healing world. So personally, I think actually dropping into joy and with singing, I mean, singing can be pure joy, and it's also a resonance, something, it's a vibrational thing. I actually ran a choir in Glastonbury which was called Succulent Hum, which was all about us coming together. So there was connection, there was joy, they were sacred songs from around the world, so there was a really deep kind of focus, but there was also, it was very much about resonance and very much about vibration. We would often play with vocal vibration techniques and things. Beautiful, absolutely incredible. I mean, these bodies, they're built for pleasure at the end of the day, and if we focus on that, then that's what we perceive. But if we're constantly just purely focusing on pain and framing it as pain, then we live a life of pain. But there is another way. There is another way, for sure.
So I love what you were saying about look at what's already here. Look at what's here that is good. Look at what is always already abundant in your life. Look at what is going well. Look at the joys, because it's so easy to focus on the difficulties, especially if you don't know what the answer is. And as we said earlier in this episode, what you focus on expands. So it's like realizing you have a choice as to where you place your thoughts, and having your breath coming in as that respite moment of like, I'm not going to react, I'm going to respond by breathing in, sitting in my center, or dropping into the earth, or whatever helps you to presence yourself. And then your wisdom has got more of a chance of expressing itself, because you've given yourself this space in the breath to gather into the truth of that moment, and know that that's going to come through what you say. I mean, that's another thing, isn't it? Breathing in, waiting, and then trusting that what comes out is what is ready to come out, not something that's an angry reaction. And I think that's a really, really key thing. Breathing into the choice point.
It is, and what I would say is that all emotion is life, and if it is in you, it is for you. As I said before, most people have a way of dealing with their feelings. They'll stay in a mental loop as to who it's about, why it's about, how it's about, and why it's not their fault, or maybe that it is their fault and oh my goodness, but actually they're staying in the story rather than actually fully welcoming the life that it is. And when we're in resistance of that, when we're in resistance of the life that it is, when we're kind of confining it and we're staying in this story, we suffer. But if we actually let go of the story, let go of the meaning, life has conspired to bring these situations to get us to feel. When we fully feel, breathe it in as if it's just for you, and really receive that energy. And it's like you're putting on a beautiful fine garment. You feel into your emotion, you take that in, you breathe it in, you let it be for you, then you're free in the energy of life. There is no negative charge in there at all. But we have to separate ourselves from our story. And it's like all of our emotions are wrapped up. They're life force energy that's been wrapped up with a story. And as long as we focus on the story, the who, the how, and the why, we all we see and all we feel is this story and this wrapper. But actually, if we go inside the wrapper, we're free.
And it keeps you stuck as well. Whereas, as you know, emotion is just energy in motion. It doesn't want to stay in your body. It comes up as information to decide what to do with. And also that place of being in the story, in the front of you, in the drama. If you can presence yourself in the back of you through breathing down your spine, breathing into the back of you, I find that incredibly helpful for presencing. But just before we finish it, there's something that I'd like to say around healing, just to back up a little bit, and how much I trust the breathing process to bring us into that place of homeostasis, because that's its job. And when we have balance, when we reconnect to the balance within us through the breath, then everything else within us can balance itself. And when we are in this balance space, we are naturally healing beings. We don't have to go searching for the healing. It's already in us. And that was one of those, what? So it's trusting the breath.
Healing means whole, becoming whole, And actually, when we drop in, we notice and we realize that we are already whole. You know, I often work with people with addictions and things, and they have this really big kind of burning need for something. And I say, put your awareness inside there, let go of the idea that there's a need, and actually it's already full. You know, let that fill you, let that be enough. And then when they get that, then they don't need this other thing. It's just the thought that keeps repeating that tells them that they're empty when actually they're really full.
Yeah, they already are the miracle. They already exist. You know, you're already
Yeah,
a
we are
winner.
the
You
miracle.
are that sperm that won and got to the egg. You know, it's like, oh
Yeah,
my goodness, I'm already a miracle. Why was I looking for something else? Oh
yeah.
my goodness. Hey, Pete, where can people find out more about what you get up to? Get in touch with you.
Right. I have a website, Naturally Ecstatic, because as I said before, we are all naturally ecstatic all of the time. You know, no matter what's going on, our being is having a party all of the time. You know, and occasionally we remember and come and join it. You know. um, so yeah, there's naturallyecstatic.com. And on there, I have my online sort of courses. Um, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, Naturally Ecstatic on Instagram and Facebook. So, yeah,
Brilliant, brilliant. Hey, look, thank you. Thank you so much for being on Chi Time. This is such a joy to share you with everyone listening.
thank you. I
You're
mean,
welcome.
I've got such a huge list of things that I just wanted to say on here, and
Yeah, and
it never happen. It never happens that I mean, I fully trust life brings us into what we need in the moment. You know,
exactly.
and
And
yet
I,
there is so much more. I mean, with breath, for me, there are so many different tiny little aspects, and I'm a bit of a breath nerd. You know, I love the science of it, but more I love the embodiedness of it. And there are so many different tools and techniques that we can actually learn that we can consciously change our state with. And when we can consciously change our state, we master our lives. So for me, breath mastery is absolutely key to living a healthy life and to be in homeostasis.
thank you, thank you, thank you, Pete Warnock, for being part of She Time. I'm definitely going to be
Thank
speaking to you
you.
again and probably encouraging you to do your own podcast, quite frankly, because, you know,
Great.
then you'd be able to chat about what you want and get people in to talk about your favorite topic and one of mine. And
Mm.
so we are coming towards the end of the show now. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends and know that you can listen on demand here on UK Health Radio, or you can hop over to Chi Time on YouTube and see us actually in action, be able to see us doing those chi moves at the beginning with the breath, and or on podcast on most of the podcast platforms. That's Chi Time, CHITIME. If you're interested in the Qigong, the elemental Qigong that I share, then it's clara@apollo.com. And we'd all love to hear from you if you want to drop us a message, anything that's come up in the show that you've really thought, oh, I'd love to tell them that. Then you can drop a note into UK Health Radio, info@ukhealthradio.com, or the Cheeky Temple at gmail.com. That's CHIQITEMPLE.
Oh, I love that.
Yay. So indeed, so hopefully there's a little track going on underneath here, which is another track that Pete has chosen called no, which is called Beyond Beliefs. Is that by James Frost as well?
No, that's Ben Böhmer. This is a beautiful German musician. It's deep progressive house. I love dance music, good dance music. And he's one of these artists. He plays barefoot. He's really hearty. He's brought so much heart into dance music. And this is a track that I use in a lot of my breathwork journeys, because I mean, yes, floaty, slow breathwork is amazing, but actually having it, really taking it and breathing yourself ecstatic is incredible too. So yeah, I love this tune.
Oh, thank you for sharing so much, and thank you for listening and watching. Your energy is important, so remember to keep your chi up, my friend. You are the miracle in action, and we will play out with this beautiful dance track beyond your beliefs. So yeah, I'll stop singing now. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.